Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for joining me today. If you have been here before, thank you for coming back. I'm Miles, I use they them pronouns, and I talk about books. I mostly focus on horror, which is perfect for today because we are going to be talking about my fall and Halloween book recommendations. These are going to be the perfect books for curling up on the couch, lighting a candle, drinking some coffee, and reading something spooky. So, most of these are going to be horror, so if you are new to reading horror, this is a perfect place to start. And if you are a seasoned horror reader, hopefully you'll still find something new here. It's the perfect time of year to check out these books. It is right in the middle of October, so it's definitely fall. It's starting to feel like Halloween, and it's the perfect time to get cozy and read a scary book. So, I hope you enjoy this video. Let's just get into it. The first book that I want to talk about today is something that I just finished the other day, but it's perfect for this video, and that is Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I have read Rory Power's other book, Wilder Girls, and it wasn't really for me, but I actually really liked this book. I know a lot of people have recommended it for fall videos, but it's perfect for that, so I just wanted to throw it in there. This story is about a girl named Margot who's raised by a single mother, and she has no knowledge of any of her other family. She is, I think, 17, and she's tired of all this secrecy from her mom, and she starts searching for her family. And one day she finds contact information for her grandma. She calls her, and then she goes to visit her in her hometown called Faline. And Faline is like a little farm town, and this setting makes it perfect for a fall book because she arrives just at harvest season and there's just rows of corn everywhere, and it just feels like a perfect fall setting. And of course, she uncovers dark family secrets. There are so many twists and turns in this book, and I actually didn't really see them coming, so that really surprised me. This story got surprisingly dark, which I really enjoyed. Definitely some trigger warnings for gore in there. YA novels are really hit or miss for me, but I actually really enjoyed this one. Definitely did have the trademark YA protagonist, but she was definitely more developed and fleshed out and not annoying, which I feel like is kind of rare for me in YA. I usually kind of get really annoyed by the protagonists. I also feel like YA usually doesn't go as hard as it should. Like, if it's a horror, it doesn't get scary or gory, and this one fucking did, so I have to give it credit for that. I really liked this book. It was a great fall read, and if you haven't checked out this book after hearing all of BookTube talk about it, this is your sign to check it out. Next, I want to talk about Hex by Thomas Oldhoyvelt. I have talked about this book before on my channel, so if you want to go more in depth, go check out my review. I think it was from like my June wrap up. I feel like any book with witches is a good Halloween read, especially like small town horror vibes as well. Hex is about a town cut off from society due to the witch that is haunting it. The Black Rock Witch is a 17th century woman that was murdered, and now she haunts the town, walking around as a physical presence. She will appear out of nowhere, she appears out of nowhere and stands in the same place for days on end. You can't touch her because bad things will happen to you. And so everyone's just kind of gotten used to it. The citizens of the town are monitored, and the town is quarantined to keep everything secret. And this takes place in modern day, so the teenagers of the town have social media, but it's very strictly monitored. The newer generation of people in this town are tired of all of this secrecy and want to change things, and they start leaking information about the Black Rock Witch. From there, things go downhill and things spiral into chaos. This book was so good. It had dark fairy tale vibes, and it mixed like old and new horror ideas together very well. I would definitely recommend this for a Halloween book, as the town is only open to outsiders for one day a year, which is the Black Rock Witch Halloween Festival, where they kind of hide her in plain sight. It is a super fun, atmospheric, scary read, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. If you like 80s horror, I would recommend My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I've also talked about this one before. It's one of my favorite books. It's about two girls, Abby and Gretchen, who are growing up in the 80s. They have been best friends since 5th grade, but when they enter high school, Gretchen starts acting a little strange, And after strange things just keep piling up on top of each other, Abby comes to the conclusion that her best friend is possessed. The rest of the novel follows Abby as she tries to save her friend and all of the antics that come with that. It actually did get pretty scary. There is some body horror in here, so warning for that. But I love the friendship in this novel. Like, horror novels that focus on friendship always have like a soft spot in my heart. I loved the friendship in this novel. The horror is so on point, and the 80s vibes were super fun without being too over the top. If you haven't read Grady Hendrix yet, do yourself a favor and start with this book. This is my favorite book that he's written. If you are into haunted houses, ghosts, and gothic vibes, I have to recommend a classic. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson is a perfect Halloween book. If you haven't heard of this book before, it is about 4 people that go to a supposedly haunted house to stay there for the summer. And unsurprisingly, the house is haunted. Shirley Jackson is the queen of gothic horror, and this is a classic for a reason. This book isn't for everyone, as you need to kind of take into account that it is old classic horror. It's not going to have jump scares, it's not going to be gory, and it's not going to have the same kind of scares that you might be used to. But I kind of wanted to simulate a like Victorian reading experience with this one, and I sat in my room, turned off all the lights, and lit like 5 candles and read it by candlelight, and that was perfect. That gave me the perfect vibe for this book, and there were some actual scary moments in it. So I would definitely recommend it. If you're a horror fan, you have to check this one out. It's a staple of the genre. It's inspired so many things that came after it. And it's a great spooky book. It won't take you that long to read. If it's been on your TBR for a while, you should check it out. I do have a few Stephen King recommendations. I'm sure you have heard of these books, so I'll get through them quickly. I want to start with Pet Sematary, which is my favorite Stephen King novel. If you haven't read any of his work, I would recommend starting with this one. If you don't know what it's about, I would probably go in blind. It's much better that way. But to sell you on it, there is reanimation. There are lots of scary moments. There's an old house in rural Maine with something in the woods behind it. And there's like a sense of impending doom just lurking over this entire novel. I could not recommend this story enough. I also love the 80s movie adaptation of this. It's a perfect Halloween movie. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Pet Sematary. It is my favorite Stephen King novel. Another King story I would recommend is Salem's Lot. It is a small town vampire story, perfect for Halloween. I also love the miniseries that was made for it, so check that out. My other King recommendation is Needful Things. That one is a little lesser known. It is about a mysterious shop called Needful Things that opens up in the small town of Castle Rock, Maine. Every item has a price, a deed that the buyer needs to carry out. Everything kind of seems innocent at first, but the town's material need and the cost of these items catches up with everybody and eventually sends the town into chaos. Don't take it too seriously, just go along for the ride, and this book is super fun. Next, I want to recommend The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Honestly, any book by Neil Gaiman would be good for fall. I would also recommend Coraline and The Ocean at the End of the Lane, but my personal favorite is The Graveyard Book. It is about a boy named Nobody that is raised in a graveyard by ghosts. It follows his adventures throughout the graveyard and the spirit world, but the real danger for him lies in the land of the living. His family was murdered when he was a baby, and the man who did it is still out looking for him. When I was a kid, I loved this book so much. The beginning of it scared the shit out of me. It's a perfect dark middle grade novel, so it'll give you those spooky Halloween vibes, but it's also cozy and wholesome and comforting. I love this book. I just talked about this book in my last video, so if you want more information on it, go to that one. But A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay is such a good spooky fall read. It's a possession novel with a very dark atmosphere. It is about a 14-year-old girl named Marjorie who her parents believe that she's possessed. Instead of getting her professional help, her family is financially struggling, so they invite a television crew to come tape the experience and the exorcism. This is an ambiguous horror story, so the whole time you're kind of going to be questioning whether or not supernatural elements really are at play here. Supernatural or not, it's fucking scary. You won't be able to put it down. You're gonna need to know what happens next. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. It's a perfect Halloween read. Next, I want to talk about The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I love this book. It's about 4 friends who go hunting for elk on their tribal elders' land, and it goes horribly wrong. Years later, they're all haunted by this event, and so are some spirits that may or may not be coming back for them. This is a revenge story. It's brutal and gory, but it's also heartfelt and sad all at the same time. The inclusion of other cultures in horror is so important, and Stephen Graham Jones adds so much to that conversation, and I love his work. I love everything that I've read by him. He also has a werewolf book called Mongrels, which is also a really good read. That would be great for Halloween as well. I think werewolves always give off a good Halloween vibe. I love this book. If you haven't checked it out, I know all of BookTube has talked about this book before. Please read it. Do yourself a favor. Stephen Graham Jones is amazing. The last book I want to recommend today is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. I finished this yesterday, and it's actually the only Ray Bradbury book I have ever read. It is probably the most explicitly... Hi. You wanna? Okay. It's probably the most explicitly Halloween book on this list. It is an adventure story that takes place on Halloween, and it centers itself around Halloween and the magic of it and the power of friendship, which I am such a sucker for. In the story, 8 boys meet their friend Pipkin at a house outside town that's supposedly haunted. Before they know it, he's been snatched away by outside forces. He's been taken to the spirit world on the day when the veil is the thinnest. They find out that a man named Mr. Mounshroud lives in the house, and he takes the boys on a journey through time to try to find and save their friend Pipkin. This book was so fun, it was so spooky, and it was really wholesome. This book was really sweet if you haven't checked it out and you want some like nice nostalgic middle grade. And I have never read a Ray Bradbury book, and I know he's written some other like fall October books. I think The October Country and Something Wicked This Way Comes. So I will definitely be checking those out soon because I really liked this story. And then I wanted to throw in a few books at the end that I haven't read yet but are on my immediate TBR, and I've heard a lot of people say that they're like fall/Halloween books, so I just wanted to throw those out there. I really want to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde that my lovely friend Grace gifted to me. I have been meaning to read it for so long, and it's definitely coming soon. I feel like it's a good fall read. I also am super excited to read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I haven't read it yet just because I'm reading it for a class this semester, and so I wanted to wait to the class just to get like my first impression. But I will definitely be reading it soon. You know, I mentioned him earlier. I love Stephen Graham Jones, and I think I'm going to love this book. I also really want to read The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. I don't know what this is about too much. I think it's kind of like a Paranorman type deal, which I love that movie. I think that's what it's like. I have a copy of it at home, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet because I've been reading so many other things. But I really do want to check that one out soon. I also am wanting to read These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This morning I googled sapphic Halloween books, and this was one of the most recommended ones. So I'm trying to get some of that in my life. Hopefully I'll like this one. I think it is YA, so we'll see. And then last but not least, I want to read Whisper Down the Lane by Clay Chapman. I do not know what this is about very much. It has a good cover. I don't really know what it's about. I think it's about like satanic panic type stuff, but it was available on Libby, so I snatched it up this morning, and I'll probably be listening to it really soon. I've heard really good things about it, and I have seen him speak on Jordaline's channel before, so I am really excited to check it out. Alright, so those are my fall Halloween recommendations. I hope you found something new on this list that you haven't checked out before. I tried to put together a good mix of classics and well-known stuff, and then a few less talked about books. So hopefully you found something new here. Comment down below, let me know what your favorite Halloween or fall book is. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. Like and subscribe if you would like to. I will also put my social media, my Goodreads, and my Instagram in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great fall season. Bye.